let's talk about Kari Lake, because I wanted to talk. We got a bunch of stories to go through, but considering we're still on the political angle, let's talk about Kari Lake. We have this story from AZ Central. What's next for Lake Fincham election lawsuits? Hobbs's lawyer calls challenges baseless. So Kari Lake filed a lawsuit contesting the results of the election. A judge today called an emergency hearing. They had their emergency hearing. The defense, which is Maricopa County Board of Supervisors, it's Katie Hobbs, Democrats basically, said that they're going to file a motion to dismiss, but the judge in the case set a trial date for, I believe, let me see, I think I have the tweet actually, if we have it. There we go. Trial set for the 21st and the 22nd. This is kind of crazy, and it's unfortunate it's going to be happening over the holiday weekend, but this could be big. So here's the difference between this and Donald Trump's 2020 stuff. With Arizona, you have a lawsuit from Kari Lake that points out, or they make the claim, there are 25,000 ballots that came in after Election Day, and that's greater than the margin of victory. They want an evidentiary hearing. I don't know how how's the judge going to say no standing? He's going to say, okay, show me the proof you have of this claim. They're going to file a motion to dismiss. It very well may get dismissed. I don't know. The difference between this and Trump, to expand upon that, is with a lot of the lawsuits that were filed in 2020, the amount of votes that were being challenged would not have overcome the victory margin. So the courts were just like, this it wouldn't matter if it happened anyway, so there's no point. With Kari Lake, 17,000 votes. So if they can present a variety of claims that are more than 17,000, and you do have, in Maricopa County, they said, when the voting machines malfunctioned, 17,000 people had to vote by this ballot box. That's at bare minimum, I think, enough to get, well, I don't know. I mean, if you were being an honest judge, you'd be like, okay, we have to have a review of that. If 17,000 ballots were affected by the machines not working, and that's the margin of victory, we got to do a review of those ballots. Otherwise, the election is people are going to contest it or whatever. But I think it's interesting nonetheless. I don't know what you guys think. My opinion is kind of that I'm not convinced Kari Lake going to be able to overcome the swamp machine. So
I don't think that I think that as much as she is going to fight tooth and nail, because that's probably her personality, I don't think that it's likely that she's going to be able to overcome the fact that it was already certified, even though the certification was, dubious because what's her name shouldn't be certifying.
Yeah, Hobbs is the Secretary of State.
The Secretary of State should not be certifying their own election at all. So that right there is dubious. But
PolitiFact says it's totally normal.
Oh yeah, I think that it's a conflict of interest. I think on its face, but I think that I don't think that any of that stuff matters anymore. I've lost a lot of faith in the electoral process. So we'll see what happens.
I'm glad that she's filed suit. I'm glad that she's pursuing it, and I think the judge absolutely should move. This should go beyond a motion to dismiss.
I mean, you go back to the 2000 election, right? Mm-hmm. And we didn't have that result that night, and everyone's freaking out. How do we not know who the president is? Now with these drop-off ballots, mail-in ballots, ballot harvesting, all this. I mean, election results taking weeks sometimes. Yeah. It is not instilling confidence in the system whatsoever. And then also the question I'd want to know is, how do they determine when and which ballots are getting cast? I mean, is that kind of tip the scales a little bit because maybe somebody calls a race early? I don't know. But that you have so many ballots sitting out there, I mean, days and sometimes weeks after, it really puts pressure on the system, and I think it ruins confidence out there in elections. Democrats completely broke the system. Establishment Republicans in many places helped, but the idea that we're having election month and sometimes even election double month, election 2 month, because they're doing a month early and then a month after to count. Okay, look, man, if we're going to have a functioning system, there have to be rules. You can't just be like the Democrat position and the leftist position is count all of the votes. And it's like, no. You count the votes in the allotted time period. And if you can't, then you've got to build a more robust system to do so. We have election day. The Constitution prescribes for election day. We can't be playing these games where it's like, well, we'll give it an extra week. No, you don't give it an extra week.
Principally, I agree with both of you. That's what I would like to see. I think the realities on the ground are
Ballot
going
harvesting.
to prevent that. I think that it's going to have to be ballot harvesting. I think it's going to have to be the conservatives are going to have to react to the reality of what elections are now. And you were talking earlier about, people being confident in elections and stuff. I think those days are long past. Like the days of Americans saying, "Oh yeah, generally we feel good about our elections." Those are relics of an old time, homie. That stuff is gone. That was gone it was probably gone in 2000, and we didn't realize it until 16.
I blame YouTube largely.
Think so?
Oh, definitely. Look, you had half the country voting one guy, half the country voting one guy, or whatever you want to break it down. And then people have questions about what happened. They have ideas. They have complaints. And then YouTube says, we're only going to allow one side of the debate.
Oh.
And so what happened then is that large group of people who believed in Trump left the platform and stopped communicating with the other side. Not by choice. They were forced off. YouTube made sure, and maybe it's on purpose, maybe they want everything to implode, or maybe they're just really dumb. But by segmenting people in that way, you guarantee they entrench their views, never have a conversation, it never develops, and then confidence will never come back. Never. This is what I was when I was talking to Jack and Vidya. I said, if you keep doing what you're doing, it's going to result in some kind of conflict or civil war or something. You cannot have two people in an argument, separate them, and tell them to keep arguing about how bad the other side is, but only among themselves. Mm-hmm. That is how you entrench tribalism, and it results in otherism. That's where we're at.
And you radicalize people that way.
Exactly.
And you don't bring the country together. You separate people and you perpetuate a divide and conquer agenda, which I believe has been festered and organized deliberately, but that's just my kind of consensus and understanding of the situation. But I do want to add to your point, Tim, especially when it comes to big tech social media, because overwhelmingly 18 to 30-year-olds voted for the Democratic Party. I do believe that's because of institutions like TikTok, like Twitter, like Google, like Facebook, like Instagram, that of course have been prioritizing particular viewpoints that benefit them with the political party that benefits them, and censoring the other political parties that don't benefit them, that do want to have some kind of accountability when it comes to these bigger institutions. But I think Florida here, and shouts out to the governor of Florida. He's making some very bold and brave actions today. But I think when we're looking at Florida, there are a lot of lessons to be learned about the way that they handled their elections, their rules. And they also Ron DeSantis specifically made sure that Florida would not be affected by the Zuckerbucks, as he called it, as Mark Zuckerberg was financing hundreds of millions of dollars into the voting effort, which predominantly helped Democrats get more voters. He made sure a lot of that money didn't reach Florida. It didn't, and I think it had an impact with Florida becoming so red.
Yeah, and you knew that result that night. You knew the election results in Florida that night.
50 years ago, we would know the results on day one, and now it takes days and weeks. How's that possible? How is that possible?
Let's see, who is this? Marty Smith, fan Sue super chatted saying in AZ you can't file a dispute until certification. So after Katie Hobbs certifies, then Kari Lake immediately launches the lawsuit, and they made there's a lot of interesting claims made in the lawsuit. But people need to understand, in a lawsuit you can claim anything you want, so it's got to be adjudicated. It's not likely, in my opinion, that Kari Lake just made things up, because then you get to an evidentiary hearing and you're like, oh, that's not true, we made it up. They're going to be like, okay, then you lose. Mm-hmm. So I'm willing to bet they have something to present. I'd like to see it. I think what's likely is the judge is just going to be like, I'm too scared of the far left, so I'm not going to actually, let a real fair hearing take place. But who knows? The judge called an emergency hearing and said, we're doing this. They have till Thursday. Thursday is when their motion to dismiss is due. Then Kari Lake gets a response on Saturday. Then the defendants get a response on Sunday. And then on Monday, the judge will have a hearing. And then the trial date is the 21st and 22nd. So this is crazy. I think he has 10 days to issue a ruling on this, or something, like some ridiculously small amount of time. Mm-hmm. And it's very, very difficult to go through all this. It was funny. The Hobbs defense team was like, we only needed a half an hour to argue to dismiss this. And then Kari Lake's team was like, no, we need more time than that. And the judge was like, what, about an hour each? It's like, I think that they're going to want to present a lot of stuff, but we'll see.
I just also don't understand how, I mean, okay, like this podcast, people watch it all over the world. Here we are in this room. They watch it all over the world. We don't have voting machines that work. Like, why do they keep having problems with voting machines?
They can figure out who, we had that Powerball. That was like a $2 billion or whatever it was.
Right.
And they're like hundreds of millions of tickets sold, and they know instantly who won. Yeah.
Yes.
Now with these elections, though, man, but to be fair on that point, it's because everyone's fighting. The real battle is, man, if you thought elections were won based on how many votes someone got, it's very naive of you. Elections are won based on the ground game. It's won based on the laws. It's won based on like so many components of this. Signature verification, mail-in ballots. You know, when the ballots come in, they got to check signatures.
Yeah.
That changes the way, you know, it's like Joe Biden said. It's not about how many votes you get, it's about who counts the vote.
Was that Joe Biden or was it Joe Stalin?
It was both.
Okay.
It literally was both of
Yeah,
them.
it actually was both. Yeah.
It was both. So here we are. This is the current state, I guess. You know, a lot of people, I don't think, care too much about I don't think as many people are following this because the midterms have come and gone, and everyone's kind of zoned out, like exhausted from it. But while I'm not confident for Kari Lake, and I'm a big fan, I want her to win, I do think it would be really interesting if she actually does win a stay at the very least.
Yeah.
And then come January 2nd, they're like, oh, we can't bring in, you know, Hobbs as governor because of the stay issued by a court.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to see it just because I'd like to see the non-establishment candidates win, because I think the establishment needs some refreshing of ideology, I suppose. But yeah, I just don't see her pulling it off. I don't see the powers that be in Arizona. You know.
Well, I think maybe we're a bit pessimistic because of what we've seen in the past. But
I'm fully
Kari Lake's fighting, and so I'm rooting for her.
I'm rooting for her too.
All I want to see is the judge say, "Show me the evidence," and then if they present bunk, garbage, or it's weak, and the judge says, "I'm sorry, it's not enough," then I'm going to say, "Well, okay, I guess." But it needs to get to that point because we haven't seen that with these other lawsuits.
Yeah,
they just said no standing, get out.
Yeah, they just get thrown out. I mean, this one needs to go the distance. And look, transparency is a good thing. That instills confidence. Let's have some transparency in this and see actually what happened to those 17,000 ballots, why the machines weren't working, perhaps, what happened to those ballots.
They said they were all counted.
Yeah. Well, I want to know that they were all counted.
Right. They should do. They should go through and signature verify whatever. And I'll put it this way too. Let's say you operate on the assumption that Kari Lake is just totally wrong. Then here's your opportunity to prove it and rub it in her face.
Well, and the annoying thing is that because you're going through this process, or you believe this process should happen, the left is like, election denier, y'all are election deniers. It's like, no, what we want, this is a good thing, right? However, it turns out this is a good thing that could perhaps instill a little bit more confidence in the electoral process, hopefully.
Yeah, as much as the left says, that that election denial is bad and blah, 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 they're doing everything they can to make sure that their opposition doesn't have any faith in the election. They're throwing out all kinds of court cases, saying without standing they never get in front of a judge. They have all, they're saying that if you deny the election, or if you ask for verification, it's election denying. They're doing everything they can to make people feel like the elections should be suspect.
Yeah, well, this is what the left does with everything, right? It's their solution is always worse than the problem, right? So people had, there's voter suppression and people don't have confidence in elections. So now we're going to have elections last for a month, right? And it's just made
it worse.
It just made things even worse. I mean, it's like when they raise taxes, it's like, well, then we'll just come up with more taxes and we'll fix it. Well,
let's see what happens on next Monday is when they're going to be, I guess the judge will issue a ruling, but then 8 days from now, 21st and 22nd, is the trial date. If it makes it that far, should be very interesting. Thanks for watching this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. Hang out with us live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. and become a member over at timcast.com for uncensored, members-only shows exclusive. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all next time.